All right, well, good morning. Thank you guys so much for joining us today, and welcome to the District 67 APT kickoff meeting for the school year 2020-20. Oh my gosh, it's not 2020. Thank God, 2021. We're frozen in 2020. 2021-2022. My name is Megan Engelberg, and I am the District 67 Executive APT President. I'm excited to be here today and to welcome our new superintendent to our APT and parent community. I have to take a moment to say it seems a bit ironic to be meeting here at Croya as we kick off this new year, because the last time we met in person as a district-wide APT was also here at Croya on Wednesday, March 11th, 2020. The next day, the world as we knew it shut down. So much has changed and happened since we were here 18 months ago, but I'm so glad to be here, and I could not be more excited to be with all of you here in person. As we welcome a new start, the APT's hope is that the district community will continue to find ways to collaborate, connect, and rebuild. This year, our District 67 APT board has picked the word all to represent our community mission for the 2021-2022 school year. Our theme is inspired by Dr. Montgomery's and the district's all in, everyday mantra, and stands for all schools, all stakeholders, all together. We are all in for our kids. I think we can agree that organizations work best when all stakeholders are showing up for their cause. And as I look around the room today, I could not be more thrilled with the amount of support that we as a district community have here. I see administrators, Board of Ed members, teachers, parents, parent leaders, community partners, and more. We are all here because we care deeply about our schools and, most importantly, our children. I would like to take a moment to acknowledge and introduce a few members of these different stakeholder groups. Beginning with our shared services team from the Administrative Center, our Superintendent, Dr. Matt Montgomery, our Deputy Superintendent, Rebecca Jenkins, Chief Communications Officer, Melissa Oakley, our Communications Assistant, Janice Patterson, and our Executive Assistant to the Superintendent and Board Clerk, Julia. Now, Julia has a very complicated last name, and I've actually never said it. I told her she's more like Madonna. She's like, can go by one name and everyone knows who we're talking about, but she said she's getting married next week, so she's gonna be Julia Newman. Beginning our building leaders, Cherokee Principal Chad Prosen, Everett Principal Renee Fitzsimmons, Sheridan Principal Susan Milsk, and DPM Principal Tom Harrion. I would also like to acknowledge Emily Bernal, who sits on the D67 Board of Education and is also our Board of Ed liaison for the APT. Thank you for being here. As for our parent leaders, beginning with our Executive APT Cabinet Vice President Lindsay Nero, Communications Lana Rains, Treasurer Amanda Lamberti, and Secretary Lacey Fittler. Our APT Building Presidents Everett Holly Klug, Cherokee Ann Kiesling, Sheridan Heidi Clifton, and DPM Monica Yon. I would also like to acknowledge the Spirit of 67 Foundation President Kimberly Karras. Finally, I would like to introduce the Croya team. This team consists of Todd, Leslie, Catherine, Rick, and Susan. Thank you for not only allowing us to have our meeting here today, but also for all you do every day for our youth. People may not realize all the support that Croya offers our schools and our children, but they spend countless hours partnering with the APT, particularly at DPM. They are helpful, accommodating, up for anything, and they always do it with a smile. This Croya team is truly a gift to our youth and to our community, so thank you guys for all you do. All right, let's go ahead. We're gonna get started today. All of you have your little quiz, so we're gonna do a little welcome quiz. So, here's how it works. Oh, does anybody need one? So I have to give credit where credit is due. Croya does this to introduce new board members to their team, and so I think it's kind of fun, so we're gonna go ahead and do it here today. All right, so each of you should have received a quiz. On it is 5 questions plus a bonus, and I'm going to read the questions and poll you, the audience, on what you think the correct answers will be, and then I'm gonna invite Dr. Montgomery to come up to the stage, and he will reveal what the right answer is as we make our way through. So, welcome, Dr. Montgomery. Where did the second microphone go? They were testing it. Oh, perfect. Hopefully you know the answers.
I was getting very nervous that I will not remember what I typed yesterday, so we'll see.
Okay, question number 1. What was Dr. Montgomery's first job? A pizza delivery person. B, worked concessions at a movie theater. C, prepared and sold potato chips at local fairgrounds. D, he was a tutor. How many think A? B, C, D. All right.
Do we tell you now or do we wait?
Yeah. No
I was a carny for sure. I wanted to put that on the quiz, but I thought that would be inappropriate. But yes, local fairground, I learned about life and humanity. If you want to see humanity in the most purest sense, go to a local fairground and just watch. It's the same thing as an amusement park, same kind of experience.
All right.
Just kidding? Did I say just kidding? Okay.
This is why I put it on here. We all find great joy in this. All right, number 2. Growing up, Dr. Montgomery was named president or vice president of all of these activities except A, National Honor Society, B, debate team, C, student council, D, drama club. How many think A, he was not named president or vice president? How many think B? C, D,
What was D?
drama club.
Oh, everything but debate. I'm so glad you didn't put like captain of the football team. That would have been a dead giveaway.
So you were definitely always a natural born leader. All right, number 3, what is Dr. Montgomery's favorite snack? A, popcorn, B, fruit. Oh, sorry, I didn't give you a chance to put your hand up there. C, chocolate, D, potato chips. All right, what's the answer?
The answer is pop.
Popcorn, yes.
There was no liquid in any of that, just so we're clear. All food.
Do you have a favorite type, like a white cheddar? Or?
No, I like that. I'm going to say it wrong. Yeah, Garrett's. Okay, so the running joke at the house is that I say Emmett's because I can never remember Garrett's. But for years, every time I went to the O'Hare airport, like there would just be like this mountain of popcorn around me, and people staring because I love it that much. But I always say the name incorrectly, so I want to double check. Sorry.
All right, number 4. Dr. Montgomery's 2 favorite music genres are A, standards, B, classic rock, C, heavy metal, D, old country. So I'm going to have you raise your hand for whatever you think both of them are. A, standards. B, classic rock. C, heavy metal. D, old country.
So I have to, the 2 that I...
Yeah, the 2.
I am so impressed that you thought I was that cool to do heavy metal. It's standards, because I'm an old soul, so if you play me Sinatra, I'll just zen out. And then also old country. Again, old soul. Like if you put Merle Haggard around, like we can be friends.
All right, number 5. What is Dr. Montgomery's most used emoji? The crazy face, the smile, prefers GIFs, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, because I always pronounce that wrong. Or D, prefers text only. All right, A, the crazy face. B, the smile. C, prefers GIFs, or GIFs, I don't know. D, prefers text only.
Definitely GIFs, and I don't know how you say it, so I get yelled at either way. But you can tell a story in them, and I can use my sarcasm in the most creative way. So definitely the GIFs or GIFs.
All right, and then we've got a bonus question, and you just get to answer this one. But I love this question, and I love to hear what people always have to say. But what is the best advice you have ever been given?
What did I say? Oh, yeah, I did say that. Okay, thank you. The truth is somewhere in the middle. And as a leader, I find that when someone comes to you with a concern or an issue or a celebration, it's always important to listen to many different perspectives, because usually the truth is somewhere blended in between all of those messages.
Dr. Montgomery?
Yes.
Sorry if you're back here.
Oh, I can project. I don't even have to use it. Sorry. So the advice is the truth is somewhere in the middle. And I learned that early as a leader, to listen to many different perspectives, especially prior to making any significant decision, because when you look at all of those different perspectives, if you can blend as many people and find win-wins, you can usually find success.
All right, well, thank you. So now that we know a little bit more about Dr. Montgomery, I would like to turn the meeting over to him. But before I do, I would like to give him a bit more of a formal welcome and introduction. As I was writing this introduction, I originally was going to tell you about his impressive resume and previous experience. And I realized that while I'm extremely impressed by all that he has accomplished, I'm equally impressed by what an amazing fit and leader Dr. Montgomery has already been in such a short time for our community and our district. Back in the spring, when the community was polled for what we wanted to see in our next superintendent, the results indicated that we desired someone that would hit the ground running, someone that had strong leadership skills, someone that prioritized full-time in-person learning, someone that would be present with our students and our staff and our administrators and would be involved at a building level, someone that could communicate in a transparent and timely way, someone that was open to hearing different perspectives, someone that could be an integrator and work collaboratively with our community partners, someone that desired to learn about the history of who we are and who we have been as a district community, and someone that prioritizes what is best for our children and their education in everything they do. And when I think about how many of these priorities Dr. Montgomery has already touched on in the short time he has been here, I feel extremely excited about his leadership and the bright future that he will bring District 67. So without further ado, welcome, Dr. Montgomery.
Thank you, Megan. Julia, you're doing slides? Okay. Jordan, I'm going to drive you nuts. You know I can't stand still. Okay, so some of you have heard bits and pieces of this because it's been the road show. So if you've heard repeats of this entry kind of talk, I apologize. I'll try to throw in new jokes, but I'm not overly funny, so I'm working in the car. So here we go. So this was a monumental move, personally, for my family and myself, both my family in Ohio and the family that I brought with me. So it wasn't a decision that we took lightly, and I want you to know that, because I want you to know that the more I learned about Lake Forest and the opportunities that were available here, the more we felt as a family like this was something that we wanted to pursue, and we thought that this would be a place that we could call home. And this summer we've been vacationing here. Normally we go on a summer vacation somewhere with the family, but instead this year we were exploring our new surroundings. So we tried to take in as much as we could through the months of July until school started, to explore, have fun. And it was magical in so many ways. From the local festivities to going downtown, and everything in between. And I have 4 babies, most of you know that, but I have 4. The picture up there, the Cherokee picture, so there's Jacqueline, Elizabeth, Everett, and Avery. Everett is my number 3, and I'm so grateful that I have 1 boy, just because as my daughters are turning into preteens, those of you who have preteens know the sheer terror of having preteens in your house and then teens. They're not human. We still love them, but like it's a struggle. Like we drove to Ohio this past weekend, and the preteens were in, we have a Suburban, so one was in one row with the younger one, a little, and one was in another row with the other small. And they were raining terror on each other. Like I couldn't give them enough devices. There was timeouts in terms of just please don't speak. I can't hear your voice anymore. And it was horrifying. So those of you who are at the preteen stage, my condolences. We'll get through this together. Those of you who went through it, you have a badge of honor, and I will lean on you because they're scary people. And I made them. I love them. But nevertheless, they're something else. Next, this summer afforded me the opportunity to get to know leaders and organizations in the community. And what I learned was there are many. And I think I'm just scratching the surface on the resources that are available to us as a community. And I was showered with love and acceptance from day one. which is a pretty special feeling as a new leader. And I count my blessings. Some of you helped participate, but there was gifts and baskets, and I think it took me a half an hour with my family to open the baskets. What that just shows me is how much you care and how welcoming you are to a new leader. And that was really special to me. But what was more special is getting to know you and meeting you and spending time with you. Highlight of the summer, I did meet Vince Vaughn. He's very tall, and he's wonderful with children. So he worked with the DPM students at the high school, and he is a natural-born teacher. So Vince and I are friends now. If you need anything, let me know. Also friends with Justin Fields. I'm not a real big sports person, so I didn't know that he was that big of a deal, but he is, and they were coaching me up. He was amazing as well. We're friends too. People are jealous. Sometimes we text on the weekends. That's a joke. Never been cool in my life. I want to take a moment and just introduce two new faces that you will maybe see around the district to make sure you know who they are. And the first one is Joanne. Joanne is our new director of student services, and she's working with Kate Kavanaugh. And when we were looking for this position, what really attracted us to Joanne was her vast experience, not only in her current role, but also her experience with preschool and how we can continue to educate our students as young as our babies and beyond. So I was thrilled that she said yes and has joined the team and has been an incredible asset already and brings a new level of excitement and expertise. I'd also like to introduce Chad, and Chad's back here, right there between Tom and Renee. He is our new principal at Cherokee, and he has a wealth of experience and expertise that he is going to bring to that building and the staff. And you can see it already. And he is working tirelessly to come together and bring that community together. And selfishly, it's one of the buildings that I'm pretty passionate about because my own babies are there. So I know I'm passionate about all the buildings, don't get jealous. But it's of particular importance to me as a dad. And I'm happy that Chad is with us together. So a quick note about my entry plan. The entry plan was supposed to be built for 90 days, but my experience with entry plans is it takes all year and sometimes 2 years. And when you're talking about two organizations and the many layers, this first year is really about me listening. And you heard that my the best advice that the truth is usually in the middle. So this first year is me asking questions. Questions like, what is going well? What should we celebrate? Where are some areas of growth? And how can we get there together? So I'm meeting with any staff member out of the 600 that wants to have a one-on-one with me or a small group. That'll take the better part of a year. And sitting down with people and engaging in that way, staff members, whether you're a teacher, a principal, a custodian, food service, all of us play a role in the greater organization or organizations, and their voices matter, more so than mine. And I would argue the voice that matters the most is students, and you'll see some time where I'm really going to have an advisory board with students to help them share their unique perspectives so I can better lead, because they are the population that we're serving. They're the ones that matter. And when you talk to them, whether they're kindergarten, like yesterday I was in Everett, a kindergarten with Everett, where they were doing play, learning through play, isn't that a novel concept? We do that here. And there was a young man I was with who was educating me about, sea creatures. And he talked through, this is how brilliant, kindergarten. It was kindergarten, right? Was it first grade? It was kindergarten, good. So he, as a science teacher at heart, I said, okay, so can we classify these? I just want to see what he could do. So he separated them all, and then we had a debate, is the shark a mammal or is the shark not? And he was so excited that he could identify them all and we could talk through it. Like, that's pretty amazing. And then I finished my day at the high school and talking to freshmen through seniors, just visiting with them about what their hopes are. What do they want the new high school principal and myself to work on this first year. And they were incredibly insightful. Like, what is the biggest bang for your buck? What's going to impact you the most? You know what they talked about? They talked about health and wellness. They talked about how there's a balance between what they're doing in school and home and all the activities they're doing. That's what they wanted us to know about. So you will see this timeline extend or elongate as much time as I need to get to know the community. A little bit about my philosophy. This isn't super exciting, but I think you should know, one, I didn't come with a predisposed idea of what Lake Forest needed. I don't think that's my job. My job is to listen and then figure out and be the conduit of that information. But my personal philosophy around education is really rooted in the idea that we need to create lifelong learners. We need to create learners who know how to learn. And when they matriculate through high school and beyond, regardless of their pathway, they can find success. So if they want to go right into a trade, if they want to go into the collegiate world and beyond, we have given them the skill sets to be successful. Because the days of having one job your whole life are gone. And I would argue that the world has changed so much, even in the last 18 months, that we as educators need to ensure that we are providing the skill sets and the competencies that young people need to be agile in a world that is ever changing. And I think at this juncture in time, Julie, will you go one more for me, please? At this juncture in time, we have the opportunity to reflect on what we learned over the last 18 months in this pandemic. I'd love to say post-pandemic is really true. I think we're getting closer, but we're not there yet. As angry and frustrating as that is. I think we have an opportunity to figure out what worked, what's classical instruction, what's maybe antiquated, and what's innovative. So we can ensure that as our students go 8th grade and beyond, and high school and beyond, that they are ready with whatever life faces them. So if their job is no longer viable, how do they redefine themselves, learn something new, and still become successful? And the running joke that some of you have heard over and over is that we just don't want them to graduate back into our basements. Some of us have very nice basements. But I don't know that we want them living with us forever. That's not our purpose. Being a parent, from my perspective, is the hardest job. It makes our day jobs feel so much easier. Because we have to nurture them, love them, support them, and then let them go. And that's, I think, the bittersweet moment of being a parent. Letting them fly, both as they're growing up, but then to leave you. And if we do our job right as educators and as parents, they will go and be successful regardless of their pathway. And the last thing I want to talk about is something a little bit silly, but resonated with me in a powerful way. I'm the weirdo that just sits around and watches and then get inspired by these random things. This weekend I was camping in Ohio. There was 30, it's an annual trip, there's 30 to 40 family and friends. We're the loudest folks. We were boating, we were jet skiing. I was sharing previously that I'm never cool, but for some reason, if I wear my hat backwards and put a pair of Oakleys on, and put a life vest on, is it a life vest? Like a life jacket? That's like a corset, holds everything in. Throw me on a jet ski, I look pretty amazing. So it's a celebrated time in my life on an annual basis. So we boated, we jet skied, we did all that stuff. And we're sitting around the fire, and somebody throws out a kickball. And as I'm watching, these children, we had a whole herd of them, we got a mess of them. These children started to self-organize. We had some adults who behaved like children, myself included, that were instigating. And then we had children from other campsites coming together for this game. And they had moments of pure joy, and I couldn't stop smiling. Because in my job, there is oftentimes, I guess I would argue in all of our jobs in our lives, there's so much negativity right now. There is so much polarization. There's no middle ground. You're either this or you're that, And we've forgotten how to have critical conversations to work together for the greater good. That's my own bias, my own experience. I even had trouble with it with some of my family and friends. Like some of them wanted to talk about COVID, and like I just wanted to not. And then I started to engage, and I said I can't. Because it's even polarized among families. And there's so much bitterness right now because we're frustrated. But as I was watching these children, we could take a lesson from them. And I find often as an educator, my greatest lessons are from kids. Because they didn't care. They didn't care if you were a Republican, an independent, or a Democrat. They didn't care if you were pro-mask or anti-mask. They didn't care if you were vaccinated or not. They didn't care what your viewpoints were on a whole host of issues that we are fighting about as a society right now. And that was refreshing to me. And it gave me hope. Because it was just pure joy. And I think sometimes, as grown-ups, if we take a moment and reflect and watch our students, they have great lessons for us to be reminded of, to help us be better adults as we're trying to pretend that we know that we have it all figured out. I know I don't. Sometimes I think I do. But they remind me. And this experience, however small and however insignificant, reminded me what was important. And I think if we keep that in the forefront of our minds, we can succeed no matter what we're faced with. And being a part of this community, or these communities, brings me joy and hope that we will be able to work together and collaboratively around a common good for the kids that we all care about so much. So thank you for allowing me to be with you today, and thank you for supporting me as a new leader in this district. Have a great day.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Montgomery. I know we're all so grateful that you are here, and it was a true pleasure to hear from you. So now we're going to take some questions, and there were some questions that were submitted, and the building presidents have some of them, so they were going to ask those along with anybody else in the audience that has a question. So we're just going to open it up. Do you want to hand? Okay. Good morning. Thank you. How do you see yourself using your role as superintendent to promote equity in our community?
So equity was one of those topics we could throw around at the campsite. I could have added DEI, critical race theory, equity, all in that conversation of polarized topics. I see my role as bringing people together. Whenever you want to talk about equity, in my opinion, at times barriers come up organically to have the conversation in a real fashion. I think my job as a leader is to create safe environments where we can have a discussion as communities about where we hope to go in the work of equity. I think there's lots of room for growth as an outsider looking in. There was lots of room for growth in my last district as well. And I would argue there's lots of room for growth wherever we are in the country. So it's not so much about the work as it is are we willing to sit down and have those conversations together and figure out what's going to work for us as a collective whole? Or conversely, are we going to fall to the trap of society right now where we're going to be on the opposite sides of the spectrum and so polarized that we can't have any forward movement? And I think this district has done an amazing job with inclusive practices. And yesterday we were talking about, Rebecca and I were speaking with Kate Kavanaugh and Jenny Sturpin, who are our directors of student services. And we're talking about the next iteration of work and what does inclusive mean and how in our minds, from our vantage point, it's much bigger than solely special education students or students receiving special education services. So my job is to create the environment so we can have those safe conversations so people can come together. That was not an easy first question. Anne, come on. Sure, so I'm going to paraphrase, and you tell me if I'm wrong. It's building on the equity question and how we're going to bring people together around how we move forward in a post-pandemic, quasi-post-pandemic world. How do we find common ground, and how do we still keep students safe, but also support them through social emotional learning? Are you okay? Okay. I don't remember what I just said. I was kidding. So I was meeting with the 67 board president this morning before I came here, and we were talking about brainstorming with the team about the next 12 months and what we need to work on. And one of the trends that is emerging as I'm having my one-on-one conversations is that there appears as if there's a break in trust. And trust is a word that is ambiguous by nature. We need to define what it really means. But it's thrown around a lot lately, and there's a break between the community and teachers, teachers and the community, the board and the community and the board, the administration and the community and the teachers and the board. We're not unique in this situation, in this trajectory of living through the pandemic. However, it is exceptionally real. You can feel it. So my job is, again, bringing people together, creating spaces where we can find common ground, and working hard as a leader to celebrate and to share our narrative so people understand and can appreciate where we're coming from, even if they disagree with where we are. So Melissa and Julia's going to be taking on a new role from she loved me so much in the first 60 days, she got a new job. She is moving from my executive assistant to a communications manager, working with Melissa, because we think, congratulations, Julia, we should celebrate her, even though she's leaving me. She's moving a desk over, so it's not like she's that far. But I want you to know that because both boards have recognized that communication is key. And we have heard from the community that they want continual support or layered support in the areas of communication because for whatever reason, from a year ago prior, it seems like we were not firing on all cylinders. So I think through effective communication, hopefully we'll rebuild relationships and then ultimately start to build trust. But I think that's going to take a long time. And I can't sugarcoat that. Because when trust is eroded, it's not repaired easily, and people have great memories. Like, this community's still mad at Mr. T right now. That's the truth, right? I'm mad at him too. Leave those trees alone, I'm the Lord's. I love trees. So I don't want to give the impression it will be easy work, but it'll be work that I'm committed to on a regular basis. And in terms of social emotional, we need to continue to expand those layers. And we need to make sure our kids are here. So if I have to wear this to ensure that I can have students with us, they don't care. Some of them care. And don't yell at me right now. But I'm watching children. Like last year, I ran a district where we were masked. We were in school every day. Every day. And I saw kids care less about the mask than adults. And when I was standing in front of 115 with the mayor, I saw teenagers with joy, which is hard. It's like a unicorn. When they were showing joy to adults, they were excited to be at school. And then I went down to 67 in the middle school, which is equally challenged, but especially if you're in 7th or 8th grade because they get weird. They were equally excited. So how can we work with SEL in the most purest sense? It's keep them here. So whatever we have to do to keep them here, that's what I'm going to fight for. Whether I agree or disagree with masks. And SEL we need to work on. Because I think bigger than masks, there are students that are mitered down with homework, extra activities, their self-proclaimed expectations of excellence, and some parent-induced. And there is I would argue, a mental health crisis that's happening with young folks right now. That we were not overly willing to have or engage in the discussion pre-pandemic. I saw a shift that talking about social emotional learning was a little safer to engage in during the pandemic because we saw adults faltering in terms of social emotional. And I know myself as a leader, it was a really miserable time to be a leader. And I was exercising, I was yoga and meditation, prayer, whatever you want to throw in that bucket. I was eating healthy, I was loving my children and my spouse, and trying to find balance, and I was still failing. And that's somebody who I would argue, I think leaders are better at managing stress just because we're stressed all the time. But as an adult, I was struggling, and I'm seeing kids not have all the tool sets and still go through similar stress. It's a real issue that is a byproduct or has been exposed from what we've seen during the pandemic. So SEL is going to have to continue to be in our vernacular in a very real way and talk about some of the uglies that people don't like to talk about. But it's my job as a leader to find safe ways where we can engage in that dialogue. And that's going to be a long journey as well. Another not so easy question. Like, can we talk about puppies or something? Go ahead in the back.
It's a little bit of a two-part. I don't think we're going to like it. Well, it's just a tough question again.
So what are the guidelines, the quarantine guidelines for students that are considered close contacts to a positive case? And then what is the learning plan when a child, if and when they are quarantined?
Okay, so I'm going to get some help. So Rebecca's going to help me with some of it. Surprise! The quarantine rules. So there's two different levels. So if you are vaccinated and you are a close contact, so our students 12 and above, you are not quarantined. Unless you become symptomatic, then that's a different situation, right? The unvaccinated students, which is 11 and under, if they're in close contact, it depends if they're in masks. It depends on how far apart they are. How long they were exposed to the given person. Is it 15 minutes in a consecutive time frame or not? And then there are layers of options. So if they were both in masks, you can do a test to stay option, which means that you need to get a negative test 1, 3, 5, 7. Days 1, 3, 5, 7, and you can stay in school and still play. If you are not masked, then the rules change, and the health department looks at each case individually to help us determine whether it's a test to stay, a 7-day quarantine, a 10-day quarantine, or a 14-day quarantine. So there are some things that are within our control and there are other things that are not, and it's in tandem with those conversations with the nurse, the health department, the parent, the teachers, and the administration. So that's a non-answer, but that's how complex it is, and that's why it's a really powerful question, because it would be much easier if I could just say, they're quarantined if this happens. Well, there's levels of quarantine now, and there's situations where you can not be quarantined at all if you're exposed. The learning plan. Rebecca, will you help me with this one? Because I always, thank you.
So your question is the learning plan when students are quarantined. And our number one goal is to ensure that all students are as connected as possible to the classroom when they're under quarantine. So they will have a couple different options available to them. One being they will have a window into the classroom through a Google Meet. So every teacher will make sure that that is on and available. We're also using teaching assistants and specialist staff to reach out to the student and ensure that they're continuing with their work and staying connected with the classroom. And then they'll also have their learning management system if the student is of an age that they have that available, where students will, teachers will continue to put on work and assignments, presentations, PowerPoint, so that the child can stay connected. Principals, did I miss anything?
I think it gets hard the younger the student. So that's where it gets a little more challenging. And the thing that we're most focused on is a window into the classroom, particularly around direct instruction. Because that's something that is a bare minimum that students need to have access to. But it has been a work in progress to try to figure out how to best support kids. Right now, we don't have a big number of quarantines, but that can swing in an instant. So we are doing our best, and we will continue to pivot and learn if there are gaps or things that are not working or things that can improve upon. I'm confident that that plan will evolve throughout the school year. And I'm kind of watching what happens. So last year it got kind of ugly in Ohio around November. Then it got better. So we'll see and we'll adjust. And if you're not feeling like you have the support that you need, if your student is quarantined, you should reach out to your building principal and then the administrative center, Rebecca and myself, and we will try to layer our support to the best of our ability. What we're not doing is the same thing we did last year, which is complete virtual environment from a remote location. What that did to teachers is made their brains, like you divide them, but there's no way, it's bad instruction, I don't know what to say. So what it does is you're trying to teach to a virtual students, and you're trying to teach to in-person students, and what happens is both groups suffer. It's not good. It's not rocket science, but we saw it in a real way. So this is our modified version of trying to make the best of a bad situation. I think leadership lately has been, I'm struggling to find win-wins for the last 18 months. Now I'm looking at the lesser of the evils. Good question. Did we answer both of them?
Yes, you did.
Cool.
Any other questions?
I want to like the move. What do you think would be a great celebratory something when we come out of other end? You know, I love the flag football, but maybe we could think about having like a community-wide on the other end of COVID. We could start thinking of it.
I don't know. I would kick to the team on this. I am an incredibly boring person, but a heck of a lot of fun. So I usually default to the team. I do think a celebration is in order. I think that coming back to school was a celebration, and we will continue to find ways to celebrate our little wins. And if and when we get to the other side, and I say if and when, I hate to even say that out loud. I just don't know how the world is going to continue to change. My commitment is, as a district or districts, we're going to find ways to celebrate being together and as a community as often as possible. Things like, 2 weekends from now, there's the Scout 5K. Like things where we can be together, the spirit garden tours. Things that bring the community together are things that should not be taken lightly, because it really provides the foundation of what makes these communities so special. Thank you all. The fact that there's this many people for a APT meeting is refreshing in the most purest sense. So thank you for partnering with us. We cannot do it without you.
Thank you so much, and thank you to everybody that asked questions. So I've got a couple quick announcements, and then we'll wrap up the meeting. All right, so please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, to get the latest updates for your building APT meetings and activities. So we have gone away from websites, just so you all know. So really all of our information is going to be found through our social media channels. So please follow us if you do not. Next week, your kickoff building APT meetings will be held. The next Tuesday is DPM's, I think it's at 9:30. Is that right, Monica?
21st.
Oh, it's the 21st. Never mind, don't listen to me. It's the 21st, and then that Wednesday will be the elementary schools. They will hold their meeting. So check the times, they'll be all listed on social media. And finally, please join us next Friday as the APT, in collaboration with District 67 Brave Series, welcomes the author, Michelle Eichard. She authors the book 14 Talks by Age 14 to our D67 community. She will host our book club discussion on Friday, September 17th at 9:30 at Gorton Community Center. If you didn't have a chance to read the book, we still encourage you to come to the discussion anyways. We promise that you will learn something and have some solid takeaways. There's also a virtual option, so an invitation went out yesterday. You can register to either come in person, or there is a link where you can register to come virtually, and it will be recorded and released to the community. So please join us. And then finally, as we wrap up this meeting, I want to thank you all for making the time to join us here today. I look forward to partnering with all of you in the coming year and making it be the best that we can make it be. I would like to leave you with a simple but helpful message that Dr. Montgomery gave to me. A month or so ago, I was probably one of the many that was emailing Dr. Montgomery concerning a topic that I was frustrated about with regards to the pandemic and how it might affect school. And in his reply, he answered my concern, and then he closed the email with a line that has really stuck with me and I'd like to share with you. It is as follows: "It will be okay, and together we will get through this, one day at a time." And when I read this, I paused and I thought, that is the perfect outlook, because it's simple, it's digestible, and it's true. And so as we look forward to the new school year, that is most certainly going to be laced with some uncertainty. It's important that we try not to lose focus. I know things will not always be perfect, and we will not always agree, but if we can stay strong as a community like we have here today, Dr. Montgomery is right. We will get through this school year, we will make it the best that it can be, and we will do it together, prioritizing what is best for our children, one day at a time. So thank you guys so much for being here. There is still some coffee outside, I think, if you are still interested in it, and I hope you all have a great rest of the day and a good week. Thank you.